This lecture covers the various types of pre-writing for your essay. Pre-writing is whatever you can do before you sit down and start typing to plan out your essay. It's important to go into each essay with a plan. The pretty standard procedure is to wait around until you feel inspired either by creativity or the impending deadline, and then sit down and type. Creativity is useful, but in a class where you're required to produce regularly and on time, it's not the best thing to rely upon for your writing. Writing is, after all, referred to as a discipline. You can always make a plan of what's expected of you for the assignment, which will also show your understanding of the assignment, and go from there. When creativity hits you, you can always add to it or express yourself, and a plan will help you go back to where you got started and see what you're missing and see what you might need to add. It's very highly recommended. I used to not write with outlines or plans or bubbles or whatever, and I didn't used to write. The narrative lecture covered some of the deeper aspects of these things, so we'll just briefly summarize what isn't new. Topic selection is settling on and deciding what you want to write about. Now, your instructor may assign these things to you, and if that's the case, understand the restrictions or limitations on your topics. You'll want to be focused and very particular in doing the right job, and all essays are not merely write about what you know and what you understand, or even how you feel. You'll want to, when you can, take the opportunity to write about something which you're interested in. If you have the choice of open topics, think, well, what do I like? What am I studying? At higher levels, you pick your classes in a field which you've picked yourself, so there's going to be a lot of stuff you can like and that you want to focus on or explore more. Certainly plenty of people expand these ideas into their master's theses and doctoral dissertations. If you're not going into writing, or you can't quite think of things that way, you can think about what websites you go to regularly. There's lots of topics and issues playing out there. You can combine topics into others. If I think of hobbies of myself personally, let's say video games, there's always issues of gender, of capitalism and marketing, downloadable content and whatnot, or even the console wars whenever we're there. We're a little too far into this rotation of things to talk about which I should buy, a Switch, Xbox One, or PlayStation 4, but a few years ago that was a fair essay topic. Beyond that, you'll want to consider your audience. Your audience is, of course, your instructor, who's trying to see if you're taking the class seriously, learning, and a capable writer, but you'll want to focus on mainly becoming a good writer with this, because eventually the rules fall by the wayside, and your voice, your expressiveness, your skill is what's the main thing. We covered tone in the past. You'll want to be, of course, academic, formal, non-biased, non-judgmental, fair, correct, and that sort of stuff. Point of view as well, usually third person, but first and second person have their places. And so, of course, now we'll get to pre-writing, as it were. When selecting your topic, you'll want to be sure and take your time. If you decide to change your essay topic, while I'll certainly allow that, it's probably not advisable when you have 3 or 1 day left on the assignment. So if you spend just a little bit more time thinking about what it is you want to write about and what it is you can write about, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache. You would want to focus on not necessarily a specific term or idea, but questions and the ideas associated with your topic, because if you can say all you have to say pretty quickly, it's not going to be a very good topic. You, of course, can talk about things with your friends to kind of get some ideas and figure out, what you should be writing about. Your focus should be more on what they have or what they're curious about, or what you can't really explain. You're finding the holes in your knowledge to then make sure that the essay itself does not have those. You'll want to narrow down a broad topic, if you were. Ideas like illegal immigration, the war on drugs, the environment, gun control. These actually are very complicated, difficult topics, which I certainly am not asking you to solve in the scope of this class, but that have within them various ideas, attitudes, laws being discussed by people in charge, and so you'll want to find a way to focus on what you can handle. Of course, you can always ask the interrogative statements, the question words, who, what, when, where, and why, and how, and while not necessarily make a paragraph out of each of these things, that would be pretty basic for those, 6 terms. That'll help you know what you might want to talk about. Again, you'll want to consider your audience and not just think of me, your instructor. This raises an experience I've had from my own past. When I was in college, a lot of my friends would complain about instructors who just wanted them to repeat the instructor's point of view, reaffirm, and certainly not take a contrary opinion or argue. I come at this from two perspectives. Certainly empathy with my friends and reaffirmation of my own values. You're not here to become copies of your instructor or share their points of view. You're here to get different experiences and ideas and perspectives, but ultimately forge your own take on things. And so that's, a betrayal of the ideas and philosophies of being a teacher. However, as an instructor myself now, I really want to go back and question my friends to say, well, did you understand the assignment, or did you misunderstand or mishear what they were saying? Because most good instructors who've stuck around or have any kind of time really are just looking to be impressed by their students. So you want to be impressive in your writing. That being said, there are many different types of audiences, and you'll want to consider who it is you're writing for. In a personal narrative like the one we're discussing, you might want to think, well, I have my main idea, that understanding or experience, which I'm going to convey, and I want to share that or make sure that's clear, but you're writing something closer to literature, and so you don't have to make it explicit. Best case scenario, your audience gets a different reaction or response. They learn a different lesson from what you've written. And if you've said, well, this is what this story is about, and make your reader say, no, it's not, it might have some trouble for you. If you leave it open to interpretation, you get the best of both worlds. Anywho, if you're writing for a less mature audience or a younger audience, you'll need to spell out directly and be more basic with what the lesson might be. Think of children's cartoons. The very young viewers get spoken to directly. They interact because they don't quite grasp that the person on TV is electrons and pixels and what have you. And even then, the older but still children shows tack on a lesson there at the end. And so I would argue that perhaps for at least a narrative, an explanation of what you learned might also seem more childish than not. You'll want to be mindful of the point of views and perspectives of your audience. You can't assume that they're going to agree with you automatically. You can't think that they know what you know. You're in fact trying to share with them and not necessarily make them change their mind, but accept your perspective as valid. Aside from the outline, there are many different types of pre-writing. You can visualize what it is you want to write. Sometimes drawing little doodles or pictures or sketches or, whatever you may do is a good way to get your ideas out there. You don't want to think of them in just all-encompassing terms. You want to try and break them open so that you know what you might explore. Pictures might help rewire your brain to do this. You might also list your own or your friends' questions. Coming up with questions that your essay might address is really the most straightforward way to plan the essay, in my opinion. Your essay is just a bunch of related answers to questions that your reader didn't even know they had about the topic. These should be related to one another, and that can help you develop the flow of your essay. Of course, you could also just free write, sit down when you may, and write out as much as you can. You'll want to be sure and avoid being satisfied with what you've done too much too early. The problem with free writing is that if you do only one draft of your essay and don't go back and fix your mistakes, there might be plenty of them there. So keep that in mind. Mapping or clustering is what you might be used to of word clouds or bubbles or webs. And the point of this is not just to generate ideas and points and topics, but to also figure out how you might organize and connect them. Sometimes you'll list two smaller bubbles under your topic and actually they go together and one is an illustration of them. You might also want to try using mapping or clustering after you've written so that you can try and reorganize what you've done if you don't want to just literally move around the paragraphs on your essay. Brainstorming is a combination of all these previously. You simply write immediately what comes to mind when you think about your topic and go from there. Writing assertions then is the opposite of questioning, writing what you already know about the topic. Depending on the essay, this might be useful to actually get started, but in deeper essays like a research paper or even a persuasive essay, you want to move away from your own knowledge and point of view, because oftentimes that's not deep enough, or you'll need to determine or find out what you might need to research or what points you might need to dispense or refute for your opponent. I've simply listed the definitions of the previous terms here for you to review if necessary. I've avoided talking about outlines until now, although I've referred to them casually. There are two different types of outlines, formal and informal. You've seen examples through these lectures of informal outlines, that is, you merely do bullet points or little tabs or dashes, however you may, to write very basic points about what it is you're going to write about, and tab in and get more detailed or direct or even more eloquent and verbose. You don't necessarily write out full sentences which will go into your essay, but the skeletons of your ideas, which you'll then add descriptions onto later on. A formal outline, as you can see here, starts with a topic or an aspect, a part of your overall main idea, and just gets more specific in a more formal, direct kind of way. In this case, I've illustrated Roman numerals, letters, then Arabic numerals, and then lowercase letters. I rarely get beyond the letter and Roman numeral part, but it's up to you how you want to work with it. Again, you don't list whole sentences here early on, although your A's might be a topic sentence for a paragraph, and then as you further illustrate or elaborate upon those ideas, you go to further aspects which might require quotes or some form of evidence. Always be sure, though, whenever you bring up evidence, to expand upon that or describe why it is you're bringing up this bit of information.